Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 5:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Democrats spent the night harumphing as President Trump delivered an excellent joint address to Congress. At one point talking about all of this endless Ukraine funding that's only led to so much death and destruction in that region. And then calling out Elizabeth Warren for supporting more death and destruction.
With no end in sight, the United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense. With no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes. $2,000 people are being killed every single week.
It's true.
More than that.
Unbelievable. By the way, I have to say, one of the funniest things is Democrats are right now out there saying that Trump used a racial slur to refer to Elizabeth Warren. It doesn't get funnier than this, I'm telling you. Emily Jashinsky's here. She's a correspondent at UnHerd and the co-host of Counterpoints. Emily, good to have you back with us.
Hey, Vince, congrats on the big news, but thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So these Democrats were very grumpy last night, and they kept cutting to camera shot by camera shot to each of them, as I said, harumphing, whether it was Nancy Pelosi chewing on her teeth or Bernie Sanders looking bewildered or Rosa DeLauro about to cast an evil spell. And I was wondering, as I saw this, I was like, do they have any hot Democrats? Are there any cute ones that they can cut to? Because this is becoming really taxing.
What are you saying about Rosa DeLauro?
I don't know. Other than I'm just glad she didn't spend much time on screen. And also, I'm wondering who told her.
No hot Democrats.
Who told her at her advanced age that purple hair was the right strategy?
You know what? She is just rolling with it. She's been rolling with it for decades now. So we just have to appreciate her commitment.
She really is committed to that character. Okay, so what did you think of the Democrat behavior last night as President Trump reeled off a series of early successes?
You know, it feels like we're now almost 10 years into the Trump phenomenon since he descended the golden escalator in May of 2015, I believe, and they have learned absolutely nothing. I continue to actually be stunned and surprised by the degree to which they are still completely clueless about how to respond to Donald Trump. I mean, the paddles that they held up, the cardboard paddles they held up with things that said, I think it was like Save Medicaid, Musk steals, and false. Those were the paddles that they were holding up at different points in the speech. And it was the most impotent display of cluelessness because after all of this time, they have to know that holding up a sign that says false, for example, does absolutely nothing because the American public knows that Donald Trump exaggerates, that Donald Trump speaks in hyperbole. They don't care. They think Democrats are worse. They think the Democrats' lies are worse than whatever Trump is saying. And so to just hold up those cardboard paddles in the year of our Lord 2025, It was incredible. It was like they've learned nothing in 10 years.
Well, even some of the lefty analysts last night were saying the same thing. Simone Sanders and Michael Steele on television, I believe MSNBC, saying this.
Simone, can we talk about it? The bingo signs were killing me. I don't know who thought up the bingo signs, but they should be fired.
Michael, this is an indictment, in my opinion, on the Democratic leadership. I talked to a lot of members during they was texting. The staff were on my phones and they were calling. And I think the best way to describe it is the Democratic leadership said they didn't want disruptions and they wanted people to attend and bring a guest and they wanted, little business as usual, and we're fighting back in other ways. There is a palpable disgust, as Claire said, from not just the members but their constituents. And it's like a pot, as someone described it to me, that's boiling and it's about to bubble over. If you do not allow the members a space to release valve, it's going to bubble over. And the visuals are not taking back the House in 2026.
I don't even know what she's talking about when she says release valve. It sounds like she's describing a blown out diaper. Like the whole thing is like they're out of control. and they can't be brought into control. And both of them kind of admitting that there are no Democrat leaders to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so clear. And again, like it's not as though from a purely political perspective, they have nothing to go off of. Obviously people are very attached to certain entitlement programs, for example. And so there's sort of some degree, just from a purely political strategic perspective, of a gift being given to them in Doge. And they can do absolutely nothing with it because their brains are so addled with this 2017 era Trump derangement syndrome that they know better now, right? Like they know better than to be completely like lost in that sauce, and they still can't bring themselves to see clearly and to actually have a like good, effective messaging strategy. Instead, they had Al Green waving his cane while Trump sort of had a bemused grin on his face, and cardboard paddles and silly little walkouts and all of the women wearing pink in a very insufferable display of virtue signaling that, again, feels like it was ripped right out of 2017.
Yes, and an environment where the most anti-woman political force in America is the Democrat Party, and they're wearing pink. They're like, "Oh, we support women. We're so feminine." Okay, please. And actually, one thing that strikes me is that they can't coalesce around any sort of message because they haven't actually found their smoking gun in any capacity yet. They sort of they kind of wave their hands in the air and they say that Elon Musk is buying the government or something. And really, he keeps bringing forward all sorts of very good evidence that we have lots of waste that's deserving of being cut. Here, for instance, is Maxine Waters going absolutely crazy and saying that Elon Musk has a, quote, high technology ass.
Turned it over to him. And we don't know everything that Elon Musk has done with his high technology ass. Mm-hmm. We don't know what he's being accused of by some, as it may relate to the election. But we're not going to give up in investigating and finding.
We don't know what's going on, but we're not going to give up getting to the thing that's going to eventually be an effective talking point.
That woman she never quits. She is always on her D game. She's just always at her most mediocre. This is the thing. Like, if I were a Democratic strategist, God forbid, none of those cardboard paddles would have said like false or anything about Elon Musk. They would have just said things about Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, that type of line, because they have to, like, what they don't understand, and this is amazing that they don't understand, because there are polls putting it directly in front of their face. Cutting waste, fraud, and abuse is popular. It's why Republicans use the phrase waste, fraud, and abuse over and over and over again. So you can't just sound like you are attacking the effort to cut waste, fraud, and abuse without offering any solution to what everybody sees as a legitimately serious problem of bloat and fraud in the federal government. If you're just railing against it without offering a better solution, you look stupid, and voters are going to continue siding. It doesn't mean that everybody loves Elon Musk, but it means they're going to side with him over Maxine Waters.
Last night, the president was, as far as I could tell, the first person in the room, and that makes sense because he had the microphone, to bring up egg prices, which I loved. I adored this moment because President Trump brings up egg prices, and then he says, it's Joe Biden's fault that he didn't stop this bird flu from just wreaking havoc on the whole country, and now we're all dealing with the increased cost of eggs. And I watched with some glee as a Democrat talking point just vaporized, that it like disappeared at a moment's notice. And boy, the Democrats seemed very angry at that time.
And they're also still not used to Trump going into these settings and being sort of shameless about politicizing things, right? He was talking about his mandate, and that seems to be what set Al Green off. And then he started talking about, he was talking about his electoral victory, and he called Biden out directly in the price of eggs line. And it's funny because, Republican and Democratic presidents have been doing this in their State of the Union joint addresses for a long time, but Trump just does it more directly. And everyone still has like moral panics about him being so political in these circumstances. And the polling, on the other hand, found like most Americans were totally fine with the speech. In fact, there was like polls that found 70% of people, depending on the wording, saw it favorably or somewhat favorably. Like it played pretty well with people who actually watched the speech. And that's another thing that's amazing to me is that he can be that political. He can be that partisan, and more nakedly so than people were in the past.
Yes.
And the public is perfectly okay with it.
Yeah, I think Britt Human, his assessment yesterday was saying something to that effect, which is it was a very political speech, but it was a great speech. It was just really, really well delivered. The CNN focus group saw President Trump's egg moment, and one of the panelists had this to say.
I don't know much about it.
No.
I mean, I don't really have enough.
They killed 100 million chickens so in 2024.
That was part of the response to avian flu.
But exactly, but that also is a reason why the prices went up.
Right.
It's not that Trump did anything about that. And I mean, it was the bird flu. They had to call the chickens. Right. That's why the prices raised up. It wasn't Trump's fault. It wasn't because Biden had some crazy policy against, eggs and chickens. So,
I appreciate all of your perspectives. We're going to have to put a pin on that.
We're going to have to end it there, said the moderator. But there you go. Emily Jashinsky, one of the best fact checks we've seen on CNN in a long time.
Yeah, it's actually hilarious. That clip is just gold. And Trump, I was actually hoping when he started talking about the chicken line that he was going to bring up like Biden's chicken genocide again, because when he goes off on that, it is incredible. But obviously CNN sort of had that conversation for him. But I mean, this is one of the things that's like we're hearing so much about how the economy is going to start turning against Donald Trump. This is going to be a problem for him, and maybe we'll see that to be the case. But one thing we do see with him is just like an incredible awareness of what people's concerns are politically, what people's concerns are, and how to talk about them in a way that's appealing. And it's just amazing always to watch the media have their bubbles sort of pop whenever they have these focus groups and flash polls after events like this.
Yes, actually, let me surf to this. I'm looking for the clip because President Trump kind of stopped me in my tracks last night when he was talking about this issue of what is happening to kids, this vicious radical gender ideology. Yeah, here it is. He two clips. Here's one. President Trump saying, it's time for Congress to pass a bill to address this.
And now I want Congress to pass a bill permanently banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie.
It's a big lie to say that a child's body is a mistake. And then the president said this.
And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you.
I was cheering on my couch watching this last night as the president said something unimpeachably true.
Mm. And, I think back actually to, again, this was 2017. There were reports at the time to the effect of the DeVos at the time Education Department being sort of hesitant to actually overturn the Obama administration's Title IX policies that originally thrust us into this chaos with locker rooms and sports. And it's just an amazing testament to go almost exactly to that date. We're coming up on 8 years to that date. And it's just like, wow, the Republican Party has changed so dramatically. And here you have Donald Trump just head on, aggressively at the State of the Union, even inviting Peyton McNabb and talking about her case. Riley Gaines was in the audience. Matt Walsh was in the audience. This is just such a radically transformed Republican Party in ways that play very well with the public.
Yeah, because they're doing what they were elected to do, which is great. It is really great to have you, as always. Emily Jashinsky, so good. Nice to talk to you today. Thank you very much. Okay, got a lot coming up here. President Trump posting some messages in the last hour about what's going on in the Middle East. I will share those with you. I've got Glenn in Sarasota, Florida right now, line 4, beautiful Sarasota. Hello, Glenn. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Vince, congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
I just am so proud to or so happy to see that you're filling in the spot there for Dan. I'm confident that the WMAL will choose another superstar for the 3 o'clock hour. But the reason why I called is want to talk about the TDS.
Yeah.
And, boy, we're really seeing it down here because we got a lot of snowbirds that come in from all the cold states. And Illinois is one of the states that just my gosh, I got balled out 2 times yesterday in the parking lot, and I just happened to glance up, and both of them from Illinois, and the last one, it kind of dawned on me, and I try not to be rude to people, but sometimes my self-control is not as under control as I'd like. So at the end, I said, hey, Trump won. But yet she was complaining about not letting her pull out in the parking spot and stuff. But it is just so evident now that I'm looking for it, the people who are so angry, and you're at one of the most prettiest places in the United States.
You are.
The Gulf of America is out there.
Yeah.
White sandy beaches, and people are from these states are angry, but I'm glad to see my my Republican friends from other states who are finally got joy on their face after 8 years of Obama and 4 years of Joe.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're on the right track. Remind them Trump won. Settle down. Lighten up. Hug your family and love God. Let's just do that, and you'll be all right. You got the weather's beautiful. You're in Sarasota, Florida. What do you have to complain about? Hey, Glenn, you keep up the good work out there. Thank you very much for everything you just said. Hey, coming up, Middle East updates from the President of the United States himself. Stay tuned. Hey, good afternoon. 5:36 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us. 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. Reports emerging today that the Trump administration has been having some discussions, negotiations with Hamas, the terror organization in Gaza, presumably about the release of these hostages that they've had for many, many months now. And the White House has just confirmed in the last few hours that is the case, that there are discussions taking place, which, even before I play this audio, that is kind of the president's policy, which is I'm going to talk to anybody I possibly can to bring about a peace. I'm going to do that. So that's President Trump, talks to people like Kim Jong-un. He talks to Vladimir Putin. He talks to these guys and says, what can we do? He talks to Xi Jinping. And apparently the White House now confirming that some conversations happening between Steve Witkoff, the special envoy, and Hamas. Here's what Karoline Leavitt had to say on the subject when she was asked about it by Fox News' Peter Doocy.
Thank you, Karoline. If the U.S. has a longstanding policy that we do not negotiate with terrorists, then why is the U.S. now negotiating directly and for the first time ever with Hamas?
Well, when it comes to the negotiations that you're referring to, first of all, the special envoy who's engaged in those negotiations does have the authority to talk to anyone. Israel was consulted on this matter. And look, dialogue and talking to people around the world to do what's in the best interest of the American people is something that the president has proven is what he believes is good faith effort to do.
By the way, I'm sorry, it's not Steve Witkoff. I'm referring to the wrong special envoy. Trump's nominee to be special envoy for hostage affairs is Adam Baylor, who is leading these talks.
Do what's right for the American people.
Is it just about the hostages, or are they also talking about the president's plan to take over Gaza?
These are ongoing talks and discussions. I am not going to detail them here. There are American lives at stake. I would defer you to the Department of State for further details, but I'm not going to get into those talks here at this point.
All right, so there's Karoline Leavitt saying, look, we're doing what we can. Well, since then, President Trump has added his voice to this. In just the last hour, he's added his Truth to this, his Truth Social account. And it's another Trump Truth Social. You ready for it? Here we go. Shalom Hamas means hello and goodbye. You can choose, says the president. Release all of the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all of the dead bodies of the people you murdered, or it is over for you. Only sick and twisted people keep bodies, and you are sick and twisted. I am sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job. Not a single Hamas member will be safe if you don't do as I say. I have just met with your former hostages whose lives you have destroyed. This is your last warning. For the leadership, now is the time to leave Gaza while you still have a chance. Also to the people of Gaza, a beautiful future awaits, but not if you hold hostages. If you do, you are dead. Make a smart decision, the president says. Release the hostages now, or there will be hell to pay later. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. So my guess is that the president wanted to make sure that his views on this subject were very clear as they are once again attempting to work with the low IQ terrorists of Hamas to figure out how do we get these hostages out of there. And President Trump deciding that, both negotiations and outright threats, some combination of those, may shake what's left of these hostages free. So that's the update today from the White House on that, as the president tries to navigate yet another very tough situation that the Biden administration left everybody with. Now, today, the status of our cities in play in the United States Congress, we have sanctuary cities still across the country who are allowing illegals to just run roughshod over American citizens and then protecting them from federal deportation. And so there was a congressional hearing led by James Comer today to get to the bottom of this, with the mayors of the various cities all hauled in front of him. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson was there, and he said being a sanctuary city is actually pretty great. It makes Chicago so much safer.
The city is also safer because of our welcoming city ordinance. That law makes sure that the city's police resources...
Doesn't Brandon Johnson have an approval rating of 6? I think that was... we read the approval rating. I believe it was a week ago. I'll check.
...are focused on our local priorities. In fact, the 40 years of Chicago's leaders have recognized that our policies toward civil immigration matters help to prevent and solve crimes. Put simply, any actions that amplify fears of deportations make Chicago more dangerous.
He has a 6.6% approval rating in Chicago. How hard do you have to work to be in single digits to have for your approval rating in your own city?
Those fears cause witnesses and victims to avoid cooperating with police. The cooperation of all people, regardless of their immigration status, is essential to achieving the city's goals of reducing crime and pursuing justice for victims.
This is why Chicago hates them. And, hey, look, Chicago, stop voting for these Democrats. You just keep doing it over and over and over again. Congressman Scott Perry, Republican of Pennsylvania, questioned the mayor of the Windy City.
Mayor Johnson, how about you? How many, according to my records, you have welcomed 51,648 illegal aliens to your sanctuary city. So I'd ask you, sanctuary from what?
If you're referring to the number of individuals that were bused from Governor Abbott without any coordination, the 52,000 individuals that were seeking asylum, those individuals were bused to us.
So not your problem?
I passed a bus ordinance to work to coordinate with the governor of Texas. He refused to do that. But that transfer of individuals was the result of the governor of Texas, not the result of a welcoming city ordinance.
Why did the governor of Texas have to transfer 52,000 people to Chicago? Why did that have to happen? What president led to that particular quandary for the governor of Texas? How did that happen? Brandon Johnson, if you could, just follow the chain of custody a little further back.
Welcoming city ordinance. So you're not welcoming these people that came here illegally?
The individuals that were bused to us from the border.
They were not welcome in Chicago? You didn't welcome them? You didn't provide them sanctuary?
So the welcoming city ordinance is pretty straightforward. It allows for our local law enforcement to focus on local policies, and that's why we're seeing a decline in violence.
So you don't care about federal law enforcement policies, only local policies?
We comply with all laws. What I do care about is this body, Washington, passing comprehensive immigration.
So hopefully you will end up complying with the laws of physics, which will drag you out of office, because 6.6% approval is not exactly a glowing reflection of a job well done. That is a city that says you are screwing this up. And the reason, if you ask people in Chicago, is because of illegal immigration. They're laying blame at the feet of the guy who is screwing them over. That's the mayor, Brandon Johnson. Today, acting like my problem, not my problem. That was the Texas governor, and whatever. We're a welcoming city. Will you turn over violent illegals to ICE? How about that? James Comer wants to know.
Mayor Johnson, under Chicago law, would you turn this criminal over to ICE on a detainer?
Our local law enforcement works hard every day to get criminals off the streets.
The second they can't answer clearly is a sign of their deception.
Chicago.
Would you turn that criminal over to ICE? That's the problem. That's one of the topics of this conversation. That's one of the problems we've heard from Tom Hammond and from the Homeland Security is that in your cities, when someone's apprehended for a crime and ICE is now with this new federal policy wanting to come in and deport the criminal alien, that you will not cooperate with ICE. Will you turn that criminal over to ICE?
And we do not harbor
Yes,
criminals.
You do. Yes, you do.
Our local police
Yes, you do.
department works hard every single day to ensure that the city
You're betraying the cops
of Chicago.
Yeah, no, you're harboring. You're absolutely harboring. You're aiding and abetting, and you should be charged as such. But Brandon Johnson there trying to convince Congress that it's not his problem as his city is ruined by his policies. There was also this moment, Congressman James Comer and Congresswoman, for some reason, Ayanna Pressley, getting into a screaming match with one another. Because here's what Ayanna Pressley tried to pull. You know how members of Congress can enter something into the record? They raise a motion to, I want to enter this article into the record. And it's just, all you do is you read the headline of whatever article it is you want to do, and maybe the name of the publication and the date. You just quickly snap it out there so it can be entered into the record. Oh, it's entered into the record. Ayanna Pressley tried to use that time to give a big speech.
Without objection, so ordered. We've put it in the record.
I haven't entered it.
You have what?
Mr. Chair, can I have several articles. I need to enter them. Let me just go ahead with what the articles are. What they speak to.
What's the next article?
Let me proceed. Data from Texas shows that U.S.-born Americans commit more rape and murder than immigrants.
Listen, this trend of you all trying to get thrown out of committee so you can get on MSNBC is going to end.
Okay, so here's the thing. First of all, isn't it nice how Democrats, every time you bring up illegal immigration, you know what their answer is? To the extent that they have any answer whatsoever. You know who's worse? Americans. Americans are garbage. This is a real talking point from the left. Ayanna Pressley wielding it today. Americans are worse than, well, see, this is the fun with statistics that they play. They say worse than immigrants. They always use this phrase, immigrants. They say, well, immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than native-born American citizens. We're not talking about all immigrants. That is not even in the conversation. We're not talking about legal immigrants and visa holders, nothing like that. We're talking about illegal foreign nationals who poured into our country. Many of whom, by the way, have at 100% rate committed crimes by illegally immigrating into the country. So already it's a lie. No, 100% of them committed a crime. 100%, which is, I'm not gonna Google it right now, but I'm pretty sure that's higher than the number of crimes that American citizens have committed. 100%. And Ayanna Pressley today saying, no, you know who's worse? American citizens. This is like such a classic feature of the left. It's always like, how much can I hate my country? Let's do a land acknowledgement. This country is stolen. The land on which we're standing is stolen. There were native peoples here with healing magic, and they were an amazing culture of spacefaring people. And it's like, what are you talking about? And the worst people who have ever lived are the people who are in this room right now, except for me. This is what they do all the time. It's all just like propagandized self-loathing. They want you to hate your country. They want you to detest the country you live in. So when you bring up illegal aliens pouring into it, they say, you know who's worse? You. You are worse. And, of course, a screaming match ensues.
About a committee so you can get on MSNBC is going to end. We're not going to put up with it.
This is my procedural right as a member of this committee.
You can go with Mr. Frost and Mr. Green.
I am reclaiming my time.
That's what you want. No. Ms. Presley, I have been very accommodating to you. Mr. Subrajam,
and I take particular umbrage as a survivor of sexual violence. I will insert into the record. This is my right.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you.
No.
They need to put a dunce cap on her head.
No. It is Mr. Subrajam.
Mr. Chair.
No, you know the process of unanimous consent. You are not recognized.
I have several articles to enter into the record.
Mr. Subrajam, if you don't go, we're going to recognize Mr. Timmons.
So Congress was productive today. They were hard at work. It was a sanctuary city meeting, which is important, by the way. It's nice. You finally get these sanctuary city mayors in front of the lawmakers, and you can question them in front of the American people and demonstrate how insane their policies are. Not just, the people in those cities have learned this, but maybe everybody else can get a sense of it. And the Democrats, they stage insurrections to try and stop you from knowing the truth. So there's Ayanna Pressley saying, American citizens are worse than illegals. It's 5:50.
On press access, your predecessor, Karine Jean-Pierre, who presided over many novel press access restrictions, criticized the recent changes to the press pool made by your office. She said in an interview, quote, what we're looking at is what North Korea is doing. What's your response to that? And can you say anything to allay concerns that unfavorable coverage will be punished in this new press pool system?
I think that's the same individual who said from this podium numerous times that the commander-in-chief was mentally and physically up for the job, which we knew was a lie.
Speaking
Many
of North
people
Korean.
in this room knew it was a lie. Many of you were admonished for asking questions about that truth. So when it comes to truth and transparency, this administration, this White House is setting the example. This president is taking far more questions than his predecessor, Joe Biden, did on a daily basis, and that will continue.
Okay, so that's the answer. That's a great answer from Caroline Levitt, who's so much better than Corinne at that job. Eric is calling from the Gulf of America right now, which is fun to say. That's line one. Hello, Eric. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Vince, how you doing? First-time caller, but about a 2-year listener.
Well, thank you.
So I'm sure you know you actually had to say it once on the air. I'm the official Pantera content recognizer of the Dan Bongino Show.
Uh-oh. Well, you found me, Eric. You've been with me for 2 years, and now you're calling in here.
So, yes, sir. I'm sure you know this, but, Dan had to fill the biggest shoes ever.
Yeah.
And he did a fantastic job. Yeah. And I know you got people that are just starting to listen to you now. And you got to fill some big shoes yourself.
Yes. Some big T-shirts, actually.
Well, I want to assure the people that are new to you that you can lace those things up, especially after 2 years of listening to you and being, a P1 captain, as Dan calls me. But I really want to say, Bongino as the Bongino Army, I think in honor of your father and your brother, we should go with the Coglianese Corps. I'm a Marine Corps vet myself.
I love that. Well, thank you for your service, Semper Fi, and my brother and my dad. When you say that, I think, well, we've already got a Coglianese Corps. They all lived in my house growing up, so we'll navigate this. Eric, thank you very much for the call. Look forward to talking to you in the future, sir.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. God bless.
All right, the great one, Mark Levin, up next here at WMAL.